Hi, this is Lee from ColouringQueen.net, and today I want to show you Mythomorphia, which is the latest from the fantastically talented Kerby Rosanes. So his first book was Untitled, and then he followed it up with the lovely Mythomorphia. And depending on whether you bought your book from the UK or the US, the title is a different colour. So this one's printed in the US and the title is in a yellow, as well as his name. Now there's always a lot of fake copies of colouring books on the market by popular artists, so just make sure you buy the original version. So there we have it, same format as his previous books. Lovely detailed cover. We've got a black cover with that lovely neon yellow. You could colour that in if you wanted to, but there is so much inside to colour in, you might never have time to colour the cover. Now we've got the title page with a beautiful illustration on there. The illustration page and a very detailed nameplate page. The paper is white and it's a very thick paper. It's a medium to heavyweight paper. It's like a light cardstock. Now, just like all his previous books, there's also things to find along the way. So you can search for things, and at the back there's a legend of where they are. Now, one of the great things about this is that they've taken into account in the layout this centre seam, or the gutter of the colouring book, which is often really difficult to get your pencil into that part when it runs into the seam. So what they've done is stopped the line art a couple of millimetres before the gutter so that you can colour that with ease without having to try and wiggle your pencil in there. Now, even though it's a very thick paper, alcohol markers are going to bleed through, as they do on any double-sided paper. But if you want to use water-based markers like Tombows, then they'll probably be fine, but I would test them out on the front and just make sure. Now, this one's all based on mythology as well as these beautiful doodles. So we've got all sorts of creatures from myth. So there's dragons, there's unicorns, and it's really, really imaginative. And see how on all of these illustrations they just stop the line art a couple of millimetres there before the gutter, so that if you are cutting it out to maybe frame it, you're not going to lose any of the image in that centre seam, and you're going to be able to colour it really easily. There's just so much detail in this, it's unbelievable. And what I'll do before I finish up here, I'll test the Tombows and the Zig clean colours just to see if there's any bleed through. Imagine some of these images are just going to take days to complete. Fortunately, there's some that have a little less detail in them if you just wanted to do something that would take you a couple of hours. But some of these are just huge with detail. And this one seems to have a lot more realistic type imagery in it, rather than all running into or morphing into doodles. And I believe that this is going to be his last book in the doodle type series. Could be wrong on that, or in the Morphia series. But see, a lot of these are just more realistic without that heavy morphing into all the doodles. So it's like a real mix of artwork. And I think this one's going to be more appealing to people, especially people that might not be familiar with Kerby's previous two books. So we've got a lot of scenes and magical castles, even some cute little bunny rabbits, but not as many of the doodle type morphs as we're used to. Now, Kerby always uses a nice black line in his artwork. This is a medium line, but there's a lot of texture being added in finer lines. It gives it a lot of depth when you colour it in. There's a lot more larger spaced images in this book, which makes it a lot easier for people that have a minor visual impairment to enjoy the book, because it's not so tightly packed with detail as some of his previous books. Now, I've only opened up the book once before I started filming this, and it's folding over quite easily. If I push it down a little bit more, it's going to fold over even easier. We've got our Medusa here with all those creepy snakes. And really, this one is so different from his previous books in that it doesn't have the huge amount of doodles in it as the previous ones. And people that love mythology and fantasy are really going to like this book, because he's managed to include, you know, all the favourite things from those genres. We've even got a little fairy here and a little Bambi type. This is a beautiful unicorn that we have here, just filled with beautiful roses on it. It's gorgeous. These ones are quite creepy. We've got our mermaid and merman. And this is more of the Kerby style that we know so well. And at the back is a list of all the things that we're to find if we have the energy after colouring the book in. And here are the answers, and this answer page is just beautifully detailed. And you can colour all of that in as well. So here are all the little answers. And that's it for the end of the book. So I'm just going to get my tombows and we'll just have a little colour in and see if there's any bleed through. So I've got a Zig clean brush and I've got a tombow. They're both water-based markers. So let's give them a try. I don't have my glasses on either, so hopefully I'll be able to see. So there's the Zig clean brush, and if we turn it over, there's no bleed through onto the other side. Let's try the tombow. And no bleed through to the other side whatsoever. So I'll just try the Copic, which is an alcohol-based marker, but it will bleed through to the other side. So I've got a Copic marker. These are alcohol based. They usually bleed through on colouring books. And it has bled through. So do not use the Copics or Sharpies or Bic markers. Don't use them, they'll bleed through unless you're prepared to ruin the page on the reverse, but water-based markers are fine. If you're going to use wet mediums like ink tints or watercolours, just bear in mind that although the paper is quite thick for a colouring book, it's a medium to heavy, like a light cardstock, it's still not designed for water-based, and if you do use that, the page is going to buckle and you might experience some bleed through or colouring to the other side. So test it out on a title page or one of those back pages to start with. I hope you enjoyed this colouring book review. If you haven't seen Kerby's previous books, you can check those out on this channel. Until next time, happy colouring.